Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Welcome to another episode of the Work From Home Show. This is your host, Adam Schrader, along with Naresh Vissa. Thanks for joining us so much today.
We've touched on this on a couple of episodes, and a lot's happened since we last talked about the PPP and the economy. And Adam, I've been thinking a lot about this because during this this Black Lives Matter movement, and there's all sorts of debate. I mean, it's not even debate. I'm sure our listeners have seen it. There's just all sorts of fighting on Facebook and unfriending and blocking and going after each other. It's pretty wild. But hopefully people have started actually thinking about solutions instead of just pasting a hashtag on their profiles and changing their profile picture to a blackout and then moving on with their lives. We've talked about this jobs guarantee, and we've talked about the freedom dividend. And I actually believe, and I think I brought this up on a previous episode, the I'm in support of both a freedom dividend and a jobs guarantee concurrently. And I brought up that I'd have to do a little bit of digging and check with, some of my contacts in local government to see if a jobs guarantee is even possible. And so, I got in touch with some people who are connected to the city of Tampa, the police department, city hall. And the problem I have with the jobs guarantee, which I think I told you before, Adam, is the jobs have to be of value. And so what the feedback that I got was that right now, the government jobs, a lot of the jobs that are currently in these municipalities are not of value. And people within the government were saying, I don't think we should be adding more jobs. I think a lot of my colleagues need to lose their jobs because they're not really doing anything, or they can be replaced by technology. And so my concern is what I brought up. I know I brought this up, but my concern is that a jobs guarantee would become an FDR type of plan where people are digging holes and getting paid $20 an hour and then undigging those holes. If there's value, absolutely, let's create the job. Let's have the federal government fund it. But there has to be a set specific plan that shows, in my opinion, okay, these 40 million jobs that we're going to create in the state of Florida through the government, they are going to help our cities or our states because of these reasons. Even when it comes to hiring more firefighters or police officers, I talked to my buddy who's a police officer, been catching up with him a lot over the past couple of weeks. And he even told me, he was like, look, police is pretty overstaffed. Most of the time we're just kind of hanging out in our car. We might get a call once in a while for some domestics. We don't need more police officers. We don't need it, we can try to create it if the government's going to give us free money, but it's just not a necessity. Same with the garbage truck collectors. They come twice a week. Do we really need them 3 or 4 more times? Do we need them to come every day? Probably not. Your thoughts, Adam?
No, I mean, I just think you need to remember it's going to be, implementing it in a time like this is going to be rough. This is something you need to implement. And if you implement it at a time like this, you just have to accept there's going to be some money that's spent that isn't used to its best purpose. Maybe you are paying a few people to dig a hole and other people to fill it in. But at the time, what you're really just trying to do is keep people working, keep money flowing into the economy, give people a sense of worth. And then as it moves along, you just fill in the gaps. You say, okay, you guys have been digging a hole. Now, instead of digging a hole, you're going to go help this group of people. And you people who've been filling in the hole, well, now we don't have any holes to dig, so you need to go over here now. And so, I mean, you just have to accept the fact that there might be a little bit of waste here and there as it's getting ramped up. But
I just
all
find
told,
that to be I find that to be a nightmare for the government, which is not the greatest manager of people. Which, I mean, there's a reason we've interviewed several of these like organizational consultants and culture experts, and you just don't. There's a reason why there are no experts when it comes to government culture or development within the government bureaucracy. I My proposal, look, I still like I like the idea, but my proposal would be implementing a jobs guarantee, except applying it to private business, private small business, private business, corporations. So like this PPP program, the payroll protection, right? It injected capital into companies, and the government told the companies, hey, this is how much money you spend on payroll for 2.5 months. You must pay your employees. And they basically just gave companies free money. Well, I think they can do the same thing as a jobs guarantee, where they just infuse the private sector with cash. And they say, look, you're not allowed to pay your executives this cash. You're not allowed to pay yourself this cash.
That won't work.
Why won't it work?
Because corporations are designed to maximize efficiency and to minimize expenses, which is why we have unemployment. We have the unemployment because there are always going to be some people that corporations just don't need. And so there's no reason in forcing...
Okay, so forget about the corporations. So PPP was not for corporations. Corporations did not qualify for the PPP. You had to, the maximum loan amount that you could get, I think it was something like 2 million or 5 million, somewhere. It was less than 5 million. So it was meant for small businesses. So we can get rid of the corporations and focus on small businesses.
I just mean business in general. So business, corporations, whatever, in general, they're designed to be as efficient as possible, to use the most output for the least input. And there's always going to be unemployment in that situation, because we're constantly getting more efficient, and it's just the way of the world. So, you need something that people aren't going to be trying to, that if things get more efficient, they're not being kicked out. And you can do that whenever you have a company or a thing like a government.
Well, the idea here is to create jobs, and if you inject the capital into small business and say, you're not allowed to pay yourself, you're not allowed to pay your executives, this has to be used to its payroll. It has to be used for payroll, where you're going to hire people. Absolutely. So if even me, my tiny little business, all of a sudden I get, let's just say, $100,000 in funding, and I'm not allowed to pay myself that money, well, now absolutely I'll go out and hire a salesperson, because right now I do my own sales, but I'll hire a business development salesperson to go out and get my company more business, and I'll be happy to pay them out of the $100,000, if not the entire amount of money. And so that's what I'm saying, where you go to the private sector and now you're creating jobs, and I hire that salesperson for the $100,000, and he goes out and gets me more business. Let's say he brings in $1 million worth of business for me, and I pay him a bonus. Well, now I've got more capital, and I can go out and hire more salespeople, or an entire web team, or an entire SEO team, and I can focus on that and grow my business.
Well, now, but then you have to have a government organization that's designed to oversee the money. So then you're just creating jobs.
What do you mean? What do you mean a government?
I mean, they're not just going to give Krish Media and Marketing $100,000 and then say, "All right, hope you go do what you're supposed to do." Now you have an oversight committee that's going to have to come in. And
they already have that. They already have that through the PPP program. So it's the same idea, right? So,
right, but that's not a permanent thing.
Yeah, but you make it permanent. It's not very difficult to do. It's actually, I've been pretty impressed at how automated it's been. So it's not, if the government can come out with a PPP program in 2 weeks and fund everyone within 6 weeks pretty efficiently, where not a single person was left out who should have gotten the funding, this is going to be a cakewalk to do, within a year. This is not a very difficult thing to pull off, because it's really, most of it is automated, because you're uploading the numbers and the documents, and then on top of that, you're working with the banks or the SBA who already have the infrastructure to handle all this. So, and this is going to be nothing like the actual PPP program, because the actual PPP program, it's like everyone and their mom was applying for this, because it was essentially free money that you could get yourself personally. In this case, some businesses may not apply. If they do apply, in this case, some businesses may not apply, but also a lot of businesses probably may not even qualify compared to the PPP or the EIDL combined. So, and even if you do have to create a different agency, isn't that a good thing? And isn't that what you want? Like, you want more government jobs? Hire the extra 4 people to oversee it. Like, I don't see a problem with that.
Well, it's also called the automatic inflation stabilizer, because whenever the downturn happens and people get let go, they have a job they can turn to, and it increases government spending. And then when the good times happen, people get hired off of that, and the government spends less. So I mean, it comes in handy, and yeah, it also is a way for the government to create a minimum wage. I mean, I know they have one out there already that they use, but it's helpful for the Minimum Wage Act as well. So I don't know. I understand what you're saying.
Well, the goal here is to create long-standing jobs, right? You don't want to create jobs where people are digging holes and then they just end up getting laid off.
Well, no, it's not for long-standing jobs. It's a transition job.
No, but the point of a transition job is for people to have real careers. You don't want to be in a transitionary job forever.
Right.
So you don't want to be digging holes forever. And so the point of a privatized, or not privatized, but like another PPP program, like a jobs guarantee, a PPP jobs guarantee would be, the private sector is hiring people to grow, because really the growth of an economy is completely dependent on the private sector. If you look at GDP and you look at the percentages of private sector versus public sector, I mean, there's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison. And so in the case of private sector, I know, Adam, you've had private sector jobs probably your entire working career. I've had private sector jobs, my entire working career. And that's really how you build a truly meaningful, long-lasting career, unless you want to become a career politician, which is a public sector job. The private sector still rules. And the government, instead of creating these transitionary jobs of digging holes, they can spend that same amount of money and help small businesses. Don't have to help the corporations, help small businesses. And the small businesses, like I said with my example, Christian Media and Marketing, tiny little business, I could absolutely use the funding, because if I'm able to get that type of funding, I will absolutely, hire more people to grow my business. And everyone's winning. I'm winning. The people who I hire are winning. Then they grow the business. The clients are winning because new clients are coming in. We're helping those clients. They're making more money. They're hiring more people. Everyone's winning. I mean, this is really how jobs are created.
It might work. I don't know. I would have to think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's any way you can get people to get a job is good. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, any way.
Well, absolutely.
You can do it.
Any way is good. I just think that if my inside contacts are saying that, the government needs to be laying off more people right now instead of hiring more people, then that a jobs guarantee for the government doesn't make sense to me. But a jobs guarantee still does make sense to me, in that the private sector is always looking to hire. Private business always wants to hire more people, always. So when you talk about laying off, cutting costs, they do that only because it makes business sense to do it. If they're able to hire someone who's a superstar and really helping the business, that person's probably not going to be let go unless there's a major downturn or the company does something stupid like Enron did and just has to lay off a bunch of people. But look, even under my proposal, maybe I hire a complete dud who just comes in, collects their salary, like most employees. They come in, they collect their salary, and they just don't do anything. Maybe that happens. Well, I'm going to have to let them go. But at least I was able to put some money in their pocket. And then, under my PPP plan, you should be allowed to apply for more funding, every X amount of years.
So then what does that person who you had to fire go and do?
That person is then going to have to do the same thing that any person who's laid off or fired has to do. And that is, find another job. There's
And where
probably
are they going to find it?
a bunch of other businesses that have gotten funding and are looking for a similar sales guy. It's just like how it is right now.
But they're going to be unemployed until the point where they can find a new job, right?
Well, they've got the freedom dividend, so they're getting that.
That's
So,
not
yeah.
really going to be enough to live on.
It's not going to be enough to live on, but they had a job, they were getting paid, and they've got the freedom dividend, and they'll get a severance. So that's just how business works. You get laid off, and you get a nice severance, and you get paid to do nothing for 3 months. Sometimes it's as little as 6 weeks, but 6 weeks to 3 months.
It's just the point of the jobs guarantee is that you have a job you can go get the next day. And so you're not unemployed. Because one of the hardest things to do is convince an employer that they should hire you when you've been without a job for a long time. If you haven't had a job in 6 months, they start to wonder why, if your skills are eroding. So the point is you can just go to the office and say, I need a job, and you get a job that day or the next day. You're guaranteed to get one.
Yeah, well, the point of this jobs guarantee, it's not 100% guarantee, but what it is doing is there are a lot of private businesses in the small businesses.
You could do both, essentially. You could give money to companies, but then tell people, if you get laid off, you can come, we have jobs for you. So what you're doing is you're incentivizing the private sector to retain employees. But then if they don't or can't retain the employees, then if, for example, if you got PPP money or PPP guarantee money, whatever you want to call it, but then, something happened and you had to shut down your operation, or you decide to retire and you close the company down, you obviously don't get any more money, but then your employees just fall back from the private sector funding to the public sector job that they have. So, I think at some point you're going to need the government offered jobs. But going through the private sector in the first place,
I don't know.
Maybe not necessarily a bad idea.
As a business person or as a business owner and as an employee, I've faced situations where I've been unemployed or where I was really struggling. And look, I know I'm probably not the prototypical American worker, and it's probably not the greatest comparison, but part of improvement, self-improvement is not just having things given to you. And in the case of this PPP program, there are 31 million small businesses in the United States, 31 million that would be eligible for this plan. Okay, so they're going to have extra funding, and they're going to be kind of like right now where the economies have started opening up, and surprisingly, I'm seeing so many businesses saying we're hiring, like we want people to come work for us. And it's largely because people don't want to go back to work because they're collecting unemployment and they're getting the stimulus check, or maybe they got the stimulus check on top of that. And so they don't want to go back to that job. So with 31 million small businesses getting this type of funding, this type of capital infusion to hire people, yeah, if you get laid off or if you get fired, there are 30,999,000 other businesses that are looking to spend that money, because remember, they have to spend it on payroll. They cannot spend it on bonuses or vacations or any of that. They have to spend it on payroll or hiring someone. So, or preferably a jobs guarantee. They have to spend it on hiring someone. So the jobs are going to be available. They're going to be created. They're going to be available. If you're a terrible worker, if you're just bad at what you do, look, I've employed many terrible workers. I've fired many people. I can't help you because nobody's going to want to work. Even the government's not going to want to work with you. If you're showing up to work, high, doing drugs on site, it's very difficult to manage those types of people. I can't help you with a jobs guarantee, with PPP. No one can. No one can. If you're just looking to collect a free paycheck and do nothing, it's very difficult. Very difficult. No thoughts on that, Adam?
No, I think, yeah. I think we're good on that topic. So on that note, we're going to say thanks for listening to this episode. Check out all of our past episodes at workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. You can also send us an email, ask us any questions, tell us how we're doing at hello@workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Go to iTunes, leave us a review, or any other podcast platform you're using. We'd really appreciate it. And until next time, keep on working from home.